I'm reading a story I wrote in Le Comp. I'm calling it Romeo and Juliet, That Works. And I'm not going to look up because I'm too lazy. A young couple is walking by a large pond and sagging elm trees. They both are happy except for a single thing. The boy, a young farmer named Philippe, is in love with the English princess Bridget, and she has terrible news. Remember here where we first met? In her lovely English accent. How could I forget that day? It's an awful sight. Plane would never wake up. He stopped and stared at her. But you did wake up. When you did, I thought that you were an angel. Philippe then sighed and kissed her. Bridget started crying. What's wrong, Bridget? He asked in a worried voice. She responded through the tears. I have to leave next week for the ballet. The last time that I might ever see you. He tried to comfort her, but she said, Philippe, I've loved every minute, but I know that you are coming to the ballet. I'm only worried about after. I've been told to go back to the palace of King Louis. But why? He said in a stern voice. Because ever since I was a young girl, I was supposed to marry Louis XIV. And that's why, from what I've heard. But she couldn't finish over the sobs. They parted ways after the ballet for 6 years. Only before Bridget was supposed to marry Louis, she had to leave. Louis? She asked in her elegant, sweet voice. Yes. Well, my Uncle Aramis today invited me to his country house in a week. Is it all right if I go, dear? I suppose, he said in an uncertain voice. Make sure you are back before the wedding. I'll make sure that I am, my dear. Later, the best of the musketeers were meeting. No, shouted D'Artagnan. I won't, Aramis, I cannot. Betray your king? Interrupted Athos. He's a coward. He knows nothing. Athos, we all know. But why do you think I haven't told Bridget? She still loves him. Enough to do this to Louis? Aramis, she... But D'Artagnan was stopped short. I give up, and he stormed off. Tomorrow, then, said the drunken Porthos. Aramis had told Porthos and Athos that Louis XIV had put Philippe in prison. He also said that they would need a decoy. Why? Said Porthos. Because, fool, we are taking him. The guard will wonder what happened to him. Hours later, they returned with a man covered in rags, wearing an iron mask. He said that his name was Philippe. What? His voice echoing around the kitchen. Please calm down, Philippe. There's also something important we have to tell you, said Athos in a calming voice. What? What else could be this awful? Philippe said in an irritated voice. Do you remember Bridget? Aramis said in a soothing voice. What about her? Philippe now being interested in the conversation. Is she coming? Now pounding his fist on the table, waking Porthos. She'll be here tomorrow. And then Philippe announced that he was going to bed. Where is he? He's off with Porthos. Why? Because she's going to be here soon. That's why. Or right now. Aramis and Athos turned around to see a carriage coming down the road. Porthos! Shouted Aramis. What? I was sleeping. She's coming. Stay inside until she greets Athos. The carriage came up while Athos and Aramis muttered plans. Aramis then walked over and hugged his niece. Bridget had fair skin, bright blue eyes, and blonde brown hair. Or in other words, a female version of Philippe. She said hello to both men, and when Philippe came out, it was total silence. Bridget, it's surely you. But is this a dream? No, because in my dreams it was the last time. And then she started crying for joy. We should leave them. I agree, and the 3 men left. I kept my promise, Philippe. I did too. And then she ran up to him, and he caught her. He led her down, and they went for a walk. During the walk, he told her of the plan where he would take Louis's place. A week later, when the plan was halfway done, Aramis came in with terrible news. What's wrong, Aramis? Said Porthos. You look flustered. We have to switch tomorrow. Things have changed. But that means... started Bridget. Yes. You have to leave in the morning. Aramis went on talking about how Bridget was going to have to lure Louis D'Artagnan and the musketeers to the prison. He also said that they would have to put him in the mask. Bridget left the following morning. Late in the afternoon, she walked into the study wearing a long gold dress with a black hat and a red feather in it. Louis, she said in a distressed way, what's wrong? Aramis, Porthos, and Athos with an unknown man are rebelling in the prison. All right, come with me, and I'll bring with us our best men. Minutes later, a whole troop of men, including Bridget, were riding through the streets of France. When they finally reached the prison doors, D'Artagnan told Louis that it could be a trap. He pulled open the door and Bridget rushed in. "This is the last battle, Louis," shouted Aramis. "You didn't! I trusted that you wouldn't," shouted D'Artagnan. "And I you, Bridget," Louis shouted. "Please don't!" But by the time she said that, Louis had started to attack. "No, look!" But Bridget's words were cut off, for Louis screamed and shoved her into the wall. She muttered Philippe's name, then fell over unconscious. The battle went on for an hour. D'Artagnan was fighting Athos, Porthos, and Aramis. Philippe and Louis were fighting and shouting insults at one another. Eventually, Philippe shouted, "You evil coward," at Louis and charged him into the wall. "Get him off me! Help me!" pleaded Louis. Athos came and pulled Philippe off of him. Then Louis took out a dagger and charged Philippe, but instead of Philippe, it hit D'Artagnan. He slumped to the floor and said, "I forgive you. All for one for..." But he died. "What about Louis?" asked Philippe. "Give me the mask. I'll get him changed," said Aramis. "I'll check on Bridget," and he ran over to her. She was slumped over and was getting a black eye. "Please, please don't," but Philippe didn't have to say any more. She let out a gasp, saw Philippe, and clung on to him, crying, "It's all right. He's gone forever." "I know, Philippe. I'm crying because you saved me." He helped her up, changed places with Louis, and when they got back to the palace, she whispered in his ear, "Tomorrow is it." And then Philippe turned around and hugged her and told her, "I love you, Bridget." "I love you too, Philippe." And he bent down and kissed her. Next day they got married, and that marriage lasted for 60 years. And then my friend wrote something.